Good morning, everyone. It's a Friday morning here. We're continuing with some more Balatonfüred-Csopak wines, namely the Homola winery. It's sort of a new account, a new partner for us. We're very happy to work with them. I've known the wines and the winery for a long time, but well, there are so many good wineries in Hungary that you can't always work with everybody. But anyway, we're happy to have these guys on board. We're going to taste 3 wines today, starting with a wine that they call Riesling.
But before we jump into that, a little bit about the winery itself. So what I love about Homola as a winery is that it's quite different from a lot of the ones that we see on the Northern Shore, because you do see a lot of this, decades-long, traditional, very small, very family-owned winemakers. This one's a little bit of a different case. So it was established by Szabolcs Homola in 2008. So on the Hungarian wine scene, we can say it's relatively new. And then in 2011, Attila Homola was hired as the winemaker. And so they had that kind of, experienced and professional consultant to go and take things to the next level. They're about 15 hectares. So, not big, not small, at least in Hungarian standards. And what I love about them is that even though they did kind of expand and modernize their winery a few years ago in 2021, and they have the capacity to produce about 300,000 bottles, but they're not doing that. They're only producing about 100,000. So keeping the output under the absolute maximum and focusing more on the quality, which in my opinion is kind of always how it should be.
Less fruity than what I would expect.
Why?
And, well, just because it's Northern Balaton. With Northern Balaton, I do expect a little bit more fruitiness, also from Homola Riesling. But this 10% Rhine Riesling actually shows a lot on the nose.
People really underestimate that a small proportion of a different grape can completely change the wine, because on the nose, it is enticing you with this little bit of white flower and this significant step of aromatic intensity, but on the palate, it's just this very almondy, very nutty, very classic Homola Riesling, and the finish is not light, it's not citrusy, it's very rustic, it kind of sits and it has a persistence to it.
Yeah, but it's like very soft.
Yeah.
Not acidic. It's a really nice one.
The fruit is there, but it's really very much this reminds me of like riper apple, riper pear, lots of orchard fruit.
Quince, yeah.
Some quince for sure. There is a hint of citrusiness there, but it's definitely very, very much in the background. And a
little mint.
A little bit of mint. Something on the herbal side for sure, almost like, kind of takes me to like lemongrass a little bit too. I would have no problem opening that on a Sunday afternoon with Sunday lunch, whatever you're having, whether it's something really traditional Hungarian.
Soft, creamy texture.
Yep.
Mostly made in stainless steel tank, but also spent a little bit of time in 500-liter Hungarian oak.
Well, the one thing we didn't talk about is exactly where they're coming from, because we mentioned North Balaton falling within the purview of the Balatonfüred-Csopak region. This is actually coming from a village it's called Palosnok, primarily, which is basically, it's right next to Csopak, but even smaller than Csopak when compared with the greater area. So if people think of that part of the country, you think of Balatonfüred as being the big kind of main city there on the northern shore of the lake. Then Csopak would be a smaller town. Palosnok is an even smaller municipality that's located there. And so we do see, in terms of soil, as far as viticulture is concerned, lots of red sandstone. So if you go there and you're wearing white shoes, you're going to come out with like brick-colored, dark red, dark orange dust all over everything. Lots of red sandstone, lots of marl, so that's giving some flintiness and some minerality to the wine, and some basalt as well. So there is that little bit of volcanic component. All of these varying soil types are another huge aspect of what gives these wines their personality. And as we've said before, Homola Riesling specifically has a very strong sense of terroir, and it reflects that back into the wines. And I think that's really what gives the personality to this wine, is you can get a pretty clear idea of where it's coming from. right when you taste it.
Yeah, and all of this minerality, all of this soil does give it a little saltiness, salty finish.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. And I love the label on the back here. It says, a worthy companion for late night chats with friends, nothing concrete, just a feeling. And sometimes
Beautiful.
you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, we have a beautiful 100% Cape Francos variety here, vintage 2021 from, again, the Homola winery. Cape Francos is, as you know, Hungary's most common red grape variety. So many regions try to claim it. I mean, Sopron Cape Francos is a thing. In Ege, it's extremely important, and also in the Szekszárd region because it's 40 to 50% of the Bikavér blend. Northern Balaton, Tihany, Csopak, Balatonfüred, they all want to be famous for their Cape Francos, and actually they all have the reason to be.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's understandable because in the Lake Balaton region, specifically on the northern shore, there's not a lot of red grape varietals that we see being planted and being made into successful wines.
Yeah,
so,
and the Cape Francos that we've been tasting from there lately, they tend to be the spiciest and the fruity, most fruit-forward ones out of all of the ones that we work with here.
Let's see what's going on.
Lots of cherry.
Ooh, probably if we.
Oh yes, lots of cherry. A
That
little bit of oakiness, and before even tasting it, it does have a nice sort of, well, not cloudiness, but graininess to it. Unfiltered, unfined wine.
Yeah, so aged in oak for 500 liter barrels for about 2 years, 24 months actually. So exactly 2 years, unfiltered, unfined, juicy, spicy, earthy. This is coming from a couple of different locations along the lake. If anybody's familiar with the layout of the cities and the municipalities, we have coming from red sandstone soil in a town called Olsovörs, and then also coming from the volcanic soils of Tihany, so Lopi Vineyard, which is located in the Tihany Peninsula. That's amazing. It's bringing so many different elements to the wine.
I think this style could be the textbook Balaton Cape Francos, Northern Balaton Cape Francos. Fruitiness, good acidity, and this beautiful mineralic undertone that you get at the back palate, mixed with a tiny bit of oakiness, earthiness.
And I think the trick here with a Balaton Cape Francos or any Balaton red wine, it has to be fruity enough and juicy enough and light enough that you wouldn't say no to it in the summer. Because when we talk about the entire, culture behind Lake Balaton, it's very much geared towards the summertime. But something like this, like you said, that has that density and the structure and the oakiness, you can also open that in the wintertime, and it's going to give you that sensation of a nice glass of red wine that you can kind of warm up with.
Yeah, this is not the chillable red category. This is a different shelf.
No, moving on to the big guns.
No.
Cabernet Franc. Ooh, coming 100% from Tihany, so the peninsula on the northern shore, vineyard called Óvár, and that's going to give us a nice mix of some limestone, some basaltic tuff, and brown forest soil. But enough of the wine nerd stuff. What can you tell us about this that actually resonates with the people?
Well, when you visit Balaton, one of the signature sort of sites is the peninsula itself. So Balaton is a lake of maybe 70 kilometers, length, and almost exactly in the middle of it there is the Tihany Peninsula, sort of cutting the lake not in half but almost in half. Amazing view, from the lake when you're swimming, and also amazing to look at the lake from the hill when you're up there by the Tihany Abbey. The Tihany Abbey in Hungary is a landmark. It goes back to the 11th century, the foundation of this abbey. So it's part of our history. And what is really especially unique about the peninsula is that it has this inner lake. So that's actually where these grapes were grown, and that gives a twist to the mesoclimate that is already very special in northern Balaton.
For sure, and also similar to the Cape Francos, this had so much overlap with the vinification and just the general winemaking. So 24 months in 500-liter barrels, once again, unfiltered, unfined. And this is something that we've seen with a handful of Hungarian Cabernet Francs recently, doing very similar style. So that unspoken rule of minimum 2 years in barrel, and that more consistent trend to see people not filtering, not fining, I think it brings out such a charming and such a unique aspect from the grape. I think it really creates this sense of what we've heard called, Magyar Franc, like Hungarian Cabernet Franc.
Yeah, this one is more on the peppery side rather than the fruity side. Probably harvested a little bit on the earlier side.
Definitely. The fruit is there, but it's not driving. The oak is there, but it's more providing the structure and definitely some flavors. You get a little bit of this woodiness and baking spice and whatnot. And what's crazy about it is that one thing we didn't mention is just the bottle production for the entire winery. So overall, they have the capacity to do about 100,000 bottles. But for these wines that we're showing today, this is definitely going to be considered their like more upper tier, their more top shelf selection. More vineyard selection. So this one was about 1,700 bottles. The Cake Francos was about 3,250. The Riesling a bit more, I think 8,000.
8,000, yeah.
But again, in the context of 100,000 bottles in total, you can really see that these are the wines that were given, all of the attention, all of the love, all of the care.
These are not the cash flow wines.
No,
these are sort of the signature wines. And a side note on we just tasted the Yazdi Cabernet Franc. They are neighboring villages, neighboring wineries. That one is a little bit more fuller bodied, a little bit more on the ripe fruit side. Lots of chocolate and lots of sour cherry. This is more vegetal, more.
I would say a little bit more refreshing, a little bit more in the direction of a medium-bodied red. Alcohol 13.5 kind of puts us in between the two styles in terms of alcohol, but like really, I would find this one to have like pairing potential, not for your absolute heaviest, meatiest dishes, but anything that has, coming off of the barbecue, anything that's charred, anything that has some vegetables and some spices mixed in can work. The Yazdi one, I would put with like, that's more of a steak wine, we can say.
Yeah, and this is vintage 2018, and it feels and it tastes so young. It's pretty incredible.
So another amazing winemaker from the northern shore of Lake Balaton. I'm not going to say that we've discovered all of them yet, but I think this is an amazing step in the right direction. These wines will be dropping in our US web shop beginning of March. So keep an eye out for those, or who knows, by the time this video gets posted, maybe they're already there. And as always, these wines are of course available on our tastings here at Brody Sándor in our shop right across the street, and naturally
TasteHungary.us and TasteHungary.eu.
Right.
So anywhere between California to Lithuania, these wines can be available from Taste Hungary.
But best case scenario would be come here and taste them for yourselves. We're waiting for you. And until then,
here. Cheers.
Egészségetekre.